Hello, Max Wright here from Success Council, and came across an interesting YouTube channel. It's called Libertarian Socialist Rants, and there's a young guy there, but he was intellectually and philosophically consistent, I found, and yet I think I disagree with him, so I'm kind of excited. It was almost reassuring to find out that I'm not one of those douches who just call people stupid who disagree with me. I think I disagree with this guy, but everything he said was seemed fairly intellectually consistent, and so I had some follow-up questions. It was my first time being exposed to libertarian socialist ideology. I've actually never even heard of it, although I actually realized that I had after listening to it. I've heard Noam Chomsky speak about some of these things, and he's just so tragically boring. I can't even, by the time he gets to the end of the sentence, I forgot what the start of the sentence was about. So kudos to you from Libertarian Socialist Rants for being both entertaining and proposing a new ideology to me that I found very, very interesting. I have some follow-up questions, if I may, to try and find out more about where you are. And just so that you know where I'm coming from, I would identify as being NCAP. So, I did catch in one of the videos, I thought we were brothers there for a little while, but I caught in some of the videos that you seem quite anti-NCAP. So, this is just a discovery questionnaire. If you would be so kind and gracious with your time to share some of the answers to your ideology, that would be great. From what I understand is that you do subscribe to the non-aggression principle. You don't seek to solve your problems or achieve your ends via violence or via the state. So that's great. We have that we're similar in that fashion. But what you do seem to take objection to is hierarchical structures. And you believe corporations fulfill that hierarchical structure. So, they've got the board of directors and CEOs and tiers of management, employees, and that hierarchy is what you find objectionable. So my first question is this just because you don't advocate using violence to achieve your ends, are you just basically saying that it's more a non-hierarchical structures? And I'm going to use the word co-op because I'm thinking that's what you're kind of thinking, where like employees own the factory and it's kind of like a co-op. If that's a bad use, I apologize. Feel free to correct me. I'm going to use the word co-op because that's what I think is what you're talking about. So you're just saying that if a company, as a general rule, a company in a co-op structure will be more efficient and have a greater result than a company in a hierarchical structure. And in which case, it's like, that's just great, it's just a cool, fun conversation. It's like, well, which way do you think is the more efficient system? But if you advocate, how do you advocate achieving your ends, and why are you so, like, I don't hate people who think that, a different form of management or a different form of, company structure than the one that I would build my company on. I don't hate those people, we just have different opinions. Whereas I do take issue with statists who advocate using violence against me. So I'm trying to figure out, first of all, do you have the same distaste of statists that you do of ANCAPs? Or are you just saying that your system is less efficient and you should change? So I'm curious about that, because I gathered from some of your videos there that you actually have the same level of distaste towards ANCAPs as you do statists. And I found that quite interesting. I was like, well, ANCAPs aren't aggressing against you. So I'd be curious to hear your argument. If you do find ANCAPs as distasteful as, say, statists, what principle are they violating? What's the code of ethics that you see an ANCAP breaks that would be as evil, let's say, as statism? Next, if it was just a co-op, if you're just saying that one's better than the other and more efficient, are you content to just, well, we'll just let the market decide? There's one company over here who organizes itself in an hierarchical structure. There's another entity over here that organizes itself as a co-op, and we just let the market decide which one wins. In which case, we're all friends and everything's great. If that's not the case, how do you want to actually stop a hierarchical corporate, like make it against the rules, make it outlawed, something like that? How do you intend to achieve that? Is it just by persuasion and convincing people to abandon that method? In which case, we're also still friends. It's all good and well. Another question. I saw in there that you took objection to basically people being employed. So if I remember correctly, there was something like there was a difference between a person owns a chair, there's a person and there's a chair. A person owns a bouquet of flowers, there's a person, there's a bouquet of flowers. And so you can sell the flowers, you can rent the flowers, you can rent the chair, you can sell the chair, you can do whatever. But a person owns himself and he can't rent himself, and there was some kind of... So you took some objection to some kind of employee relationship, which is why you're suggesting non-hire, like a co-op, right? So I'm kind of curious about that. I also saw you mention that you're into music and you have in the past sought out a music instructor. And I'm just curious, just going to ask a series of questions to try and figure out how you're defining these things. So as I understand it, if you hire a music instructor, then you are employing this music instructor. They are your employee. You're paying for their time and they're teaching you music. And I was wondering, just to make 100% clear, do you find this okay or not okay? Then I'm assuming you're going to say that that's okay. I'm going to just trying to back it up and just try and slowly take baby steps towards a giant corporation and figure out where the tipping point for you is to where it becomes not okay. So, okay, in the instance where you're employing, you employ the music instructor to teach you how to play music, and let's say you earn that money because you own a corner stop that makes a sandwich shop, and you employ him at the sandwich shop. Is that okay? If, let's say, you own a Subway franchise and you own dozens of people, you employ dozens of people, is that, and he's one of the employees, is that okay? What if you're the master franchisee and you employ 20,000 people? Is that okay? And I'm just trying to figure out at what point does something become hierarchical, and what point does something become, well, we're trading, or I'm hiring you for one specific task. And wherever that point is, if you could relate it to some kind of principle, as opposed to just a number, well, at $10 million turnover, that's when it becomes evil, or at 200 employees, that's when it becomes evil. Just try and figure out what's the principle that you're hanging your hat on where it becomes hierarchical. Because I would say that in the instance where you're hiring the music instructor, that's hierarchical. You're the employer, and he's the employee. Also, are there any kinds of property rights? Is there any kind of private ownership of any good or asset whatsoever? And in the society you advocate, is there money? I'm sorry if those are questions appearing naive. Like I said, it's my first exposure to the ideology. So yeah, is there any kind of money? If so, is that just free market money? If people choose to use whatever they use, that's fine. Or is there some other organization of money? How do you see that working? So yeah, that's my initial questions to try and further understand your ideology. And any time you invest in replying would be much appreciated. Thank you very much.